What's up, everybody? It's Geoff Grammer with the Albuquerque Journal, and I'm here as I am every Monday with Sean Reider, the Albuquerque Journal's Lobo football beat writer, college football beat writer. Sean, how you doing?
Doing good, Geoff. Always a pleasure to be on Albuquerque Journal Sports Live with yourself.
We got to come up with a better
You
name.
really do.
Albuquerque Journal Sports Live is what it is for now, and I will start off with we're going to talk a lot of Lobo football today. Lobo football playing at Auburn this week, their third game, week 3, but the Lobos are already coming off a bye, having had a week 0 game. We'll get into a lot of the Lobo and Auburn kind of matchups and all that, but for those mostly Lobo fans, I understand, but for those that don't know, Sean was in Las Cruces this weekend. Real quick rundown. What'd you think of the Aggies, who the Lobos do play in a couple weeks, and what'd you think of the game with Liberty?
Yeah, I mean, really, really impressive defensive performance until those final 2 Liberty drives. Tony Sanchez, the head coach, kind of said after the game that he felt it was a little bit of fatigue. Buda Paletti, who is the defensive end for NMSU, said he didn't think it was that they ran out of gas at the end. He felt that it was more of a matter of they got complacent to a certain point. They got complacent on the back end and started giving things up there. And by that final drive, the one that Quentin Cooley came up with a 44-yard rushing touchdown on to effectively end the game, they just gashed them up front. But I thought it was a phenomenal game plan, really, really well executed on NMSU's side defensively. Offensively, the first half, and I think that's what a lot of people were looking to see, way more comfort from Parker Awad, the starting quarterback there. Started 6 for 8 for, I don't remember how many yards off the top of my head, 6 for 8, but with 2 TDs passing. And then he completed three passes for the entire second half and really struggled to push the ball downfield. To kind of an interesting situation there in terms of, the offense. They're really trying to bring that quarterback up. But defensively, I was really, really impressed by the job they did against Liberty, but ended up just being kind of a heartbreaker for NMSU in a late night.
Well, I do want to ask this: you are an outsider coming in from Michigan. You don't have ties, heartstrings attached to being a Lobo fan or being an Aggie fan, but you were present and covering both the Montana State loss for the Lobos and the Liberty loss for the Aggies. A little more on the line, obviously, when you talk about a conference opponent and somebody you just face in the conference championship game. But some similarities to just kind of having the game in your hands and in your lead the entire time until the closing minutes and sort of letting one at home slip away. Was there any similarities in your mind?
Yeah, I think it really was. It felt like it didn't feel like Montana State flipped the switch against UNM more or less. They just kind of kept doing the same things and ended up just hitting on big plays. You can maybe say they kind of flipped the switch on that final drive from a lot was, not even really connecting with a lot of guys that he hadn't been connecting with, but was just kind of, dicing up on UNM secondary. It felt like Liberty just flipped the switch. It literally, their penultimate drive, they went in tempo and they just drove. I don't even know if Salter had an incompletion on that penultimate drive, and it was kind of stunning to see in real time because Salter, NMSU did a heck of a job holding him down all game in terms of containing him in the run game and also just making things difficult for him on the back end. I thought coverage was great, and then it just kind of slipped at the end. But definitely similarities there. I don't know as an outsider, excuse me. I will not pick which one was more heartbreaking for either fan base.
All right, I'm going to dive in real quick to a little bit of Mountain West. Just kind of recap. It's only week 3 of the college football season. Some teams have played 3 games. Any surprises so far in what you've seen? There's only been 1 league game played so far. San Jose State did beat Air Force, so that's why they are at the top and Air Force is at the bottom because it goes by league standings. By league games first in standings like this, but anything kind of jump out to you so far in the early season? Any team surprise you, good or bad?
I don't know if I'm shocked by Air Force to this point. They didn't look great against Merrimack, and then obviously dropped this one to San Jose State this last weekend. I wasn't particularly high on Air Force. I felt like they might have just lost a bit too much from that really good team last year. And it is Air Force. It's a different setup there. You're not used to the transfer portal. And the guys that are going to be playing for the first time are sometimes, sophomores and juniors and seniors and all that. I don't know if I'm totally surprised by that. I'm surprised by Wyoming. They're there's some big time problems there with the offense. And Idaho's a really good FCS team, but you're kind of pairing that together with just getting demolished by
Yeah.
Arizona State. I mean, it has not been good so far in Laramie. That's been surprising. I thought they were going to be better overall. I thought Fresno did a really good job gutting out that win against Sac State. Thought that was really a really quality win. You kind of pair that with playing Michigan tight for a good period of that week 1 game. I don't think anybody was treating them like they were outside of the conversation to, win a league title and all that. But certainly, I think that absolutely puts them in the mix. They've shown a lot of good stuff so far. And then, not surprising either, but I mean, just a sensational game by Boise. I mean, Genty, it's kind of insane the fact that he had all this hype coming into the season, all these they're building the Heisman campaign, they're doing a really good job of that, and he just still finds ways to make plays where you're like, oh my god, I mean, he's remarkable.
As you mentioned him, I got Jesse Kurt's kind of video in the background. I don't have the audio up, but I do have the Ashton Genty is the Mountain West Offensive Player of the Week, and as anybody who has seen his stats so far can attest, it's just kind of insane what he's been doing. In fact, Jesse makes the point in this Mountain, as he was named Offensive Player of the Week, Ashton Genty. He makes the point that through 2 weeks he has 9 touchdowns already, which ties a record with Ricky Williams from I think 96 or something like that for the most touchdowns through 2 games. 9 touchdowns is insane. Obviously 6 in one will set you up for that. But against a good Oregon team, he had 192 yards on 25 carries, 3 touchdowns, and he's going crazy, which is what everyone expected. Just to run down, I guess, while I have the video playing, the other Mountain West Players of the Week, Jordan Pollard Jr. from San Jose State, was a part of that huge defensive effort, holding Air Force to under 200 yards. First San Jose State win at Falcon Stadium, which is kind of crazy to hold Air Force and their offense to under 200 yards. Got a special teams player of the week, Jalen Moss, returned a punt for a touchdown for Fresno State. And then rounding out, I did have it right here, rounding out the awards for the week for the league was freshman running back for UNLV, Greg Burrell, rushed for 101 yards on 11 carries. And UNLV in a blowout. UNLV's looked really good so far, I think, and they had 504 rushing yards on Saturday. So I think UNLV's looked good, but I wouldn't call that a huge surprise. I asked you about the surprises, and I think Wyoming is the most accurate, most natural kind of answer there. On the bad side, they haven't looked very good, and I think more people expected more than that out of them. Maybe Air Force a little surprising too. I don't know if any of the good teams yet have surprised, because I do think people expected UNLV to be good. I do think people expected Boise State to be pretty good and have a heck of a chance against a top 10 team like Oregon, like they did. So anybody a little better than you thought so far?
I think to kind of build on the point of the top teams in what feels like a top heavy league at this point, the top teams not being all that surprising. I think you were curious though, a little bit curious about Fresno State. Obviously, Tedford's not on the sidelines and all that. How would that change things, and how would that kind of show up in the results in the actual games? And the fact that they've beat a really good Sac State team, they played Michigan tight. I think that's a credit to Tim Skipper. I think that's a credit to the entire staff and the players over there. So I don't know if it's surprising, but it's definitely good to see. If you're a Fresno State fan or you're a Mountain West fan, you like the league to be pretty competitive. But yeah, Wyoming, it's you could maybe question in the past the ceiling of a Craig Bowl program in some ways, but you could never question the floor. I mean, and it feels like some of these losses, you're starting to lose a little bit of that floor that took years to build back up, because it was rough before Bowl got into town. So very curious to see how things keep playing out. And I thought the run game was going to be a lot better. It just has not lived up to what I was expecting.
All right, let's roll on. This is game 3 for the Lobos, week 3 of college football season. They're playing Auburn this week. I'll run down let's see the logistics here. It's at Auburn. Auburn's 1-1, huge blowout, 73-3 win over FCS Alabama A&M team. And then they lost Saturday at home to Cal, 21-14, a big ACC SEC showdown. because Cal is a Atlantic Coast power, of course. So a little surprising there. I'll ask you for some reaction to that in a second. I will quickly though run down the odds. The odds makers have this as the Lobos are a 28.5 point favorite, 28.5, betting underdog at Auburn, and the over-under is set at 61.5. So they do expect some points to be scored here. With that point spread, though, they expect Auburn to be the one scoring a whole bunch of points. So I'll ask you just for some general, let's start with just sort of the general, Google Maps view. What's the rundown of this game for both programs? I would think Auburn's kind of in a desperate position right now.
Yeah, it definitely. You mentioned 21-14 loss to Cal. I don't know. Did you watch the game at all?
I did.
Yeah, I
A
mean,
lot of turnovers.
5 turnovers. 2 of them come in on interceptions in the final 3 minutes, I believe. Yeah, 4 interceptions total. I think Peyton Thorne, starting quarterback over there, former Michigan State guy, finished 14-27, 1 touchdown with 4 interceptions, and he's really been kind of called into question. SEC plays looming. Thorne wasn't amazing last year. He was really efficient on the run, actually, but he wasn't quite the passer that Freeze and company kind of hoped that he would be. Serviceable, but not quite, taking things up, taking the top off and all that. And 100% in question. Freeze said today that during his kind of weekly press conference that he's expecting Thorne to, be the guy. But if it doesn't go well against New Mexico, kind of all bets are off. They might be taking a harder look there. The Cal game was just, and it was a lot of turnovers too. 5 turnovers is going to kill you.
I'll throw this into it, and because I'm old, but I am not too old to appreciate a good press conference quote. It was also said at the Auburn press conference today, along the lines of the quarterback struggles and the offensive struggles. Apparently, Hugh Freeze said that he's going to kind of, I guess, dumb it down a little bit. Simplify would probably be the more appropriate term of their offense or a little bit this week against the Lobos. And what he said was, quote, "I can promise you the package will not be big," which is Hugh Freeze is promising that the Lobo D will not see a big package Saturday. So I guess that's a good thing because, frankly, the Lobo defense has been a little bit more of a question mark than the offense, especially after putting up 39 points last week at Arizona. I don't know. Looking at Arizona's results, I don't know now the whole week-to-week aspect of college football it's hard to compare games sometimes week to week, but I was a little surprised to see Arizona struggle so much to move the ball and score points against a Northern Arizona team after scoring 61 against the Lobos. So the Lobo defense still has a lot of questions to answer in my mind.
Yeah, and I think it was Tetairoa McMillan, star wide receiver for Arizona. He had 304 receiving yards, 10 receptions, 4 TDs. Put on a show against UNM, and he had 2 receptions for 11 yards against FCS Northern Arizona. And I didn't get to watch the majority of that game, honestly, so I don't know quite exactly how Northern Arizona was playing them. But yeah, definitely, UNM's defense is in question, but Auburn's offense to this point is in question. They have a lot of playmakers. They added, I think it's Cam Coleman is the freshman. Is Coleman the Penn State transfer or the freshman?
You're just better than mine. I think it's Coleman's the freshman, I think. But anyway.
Yeah, they really the approach for Auburn this kind of offseason was we're going to surround Thorne with more playmakers. We're going to take that approach to try and get the most out of this offense. And in their first test, it did not really look great. Run game was not great either. And Auburn was, one of their saving graces last year when they kind of had a hot stretch, heading into that New Mexico State game, which we all know how that ended. They were really, really good at running the football. They were a top 25 rushing team, pretty efficient, pretty forceful, and could overwhelm some teams. And it doesn't quite look like that so far, unless you're Alabama A&M. But I don't know how much you can read into that result.
Real quick, Coleman is the freshman, the Penn State transfer. Keandre Lambert-Smith is the Penn State transfer.
Yeah, so I know numbers right now. So that's number 5 and number 8.
Coleman, yeah. They got playmakers. The question is going to be at quarterback, which is a little bit the opposite, I guess. It's well, I shouldn't say the opposite because I think UNM has some playmakers. Luke Weisson's been playing fantastic at receiver, but the quarterback's what's not really the question at UNM. So the difference in two offenses, I think, at least at quarterback, is going to be interesting to watch. Can a settled quarterback or a program that's settled on its quarterback and confident in its quarterback go into Auburn and look poised like it did against Arizona? Frankly, the offense looked poised throughout. It wasn't a bigger moment for anybody on that UNM offense. And can a struggling Auburn offense, um, find confidence in its quarterback? Because it certainly, whether it's lost confidence in its quarterback or not, it's probably a little premature after one loss, but I'll bet you it comes quick if he struggles early. If he throws a couple picks by chance, I think you'll start hearing some grumbles in the stands, and it's interesting. I wouldn't predict an upset, not at a 28.5 point spread, but I could see this being an interesting game if the Auburn offense struggles early.
Yeah, and I think, and you said you might be able to hear some grumbles. I think there's already grumbles. I think
Sure.
when when they enter on Jordan Hare on Saturday, it's going to just be grumbles at that point
Yeah.
until they prove otherwise, and that's kind of the deal there. I'm just parsing through tweets too. I think there's going to be some offensive line shuffling for Auburn as well. So very interested to see how that plays out too. If it isn't a full strength offensive line, Xavier Miller, I believe, is out for Auburn. So, that changes things as well too. And defensively, I mean, and I haven't done a ton on Auburn's defense to this point, to be honest with you, but just kind of watching that Cal game, I mean, that's not an overwhelming Cal offense by any stretch, but I mean, they just kind of got enough of what they needed. Were able to, kind of combine those turnovers and end up getting the win. But curious to see, how Auburn's, defensive playmakers, the athleticism that they do have on the side of the ball, because it's a pretty athletic defense, does counter UNM's offense. And if that leads to, UNM, getting more guys involved or kind of turning to different guys to kind of beat things out there.
All right, I'm gonna kind of interject a little bit and ask you how the bye week went before we start talking maybe injuries and a little more Lobo and what came out of today's presser. I do want to kind of add. I want to start off with something you read, a quote like right off the bat last week. I'm trying to find what I got here. Right off the bat in last week's show, you read off a quote from the presser. And it had something to do with their schedule, if I remember correctly, right? And I'm curious, did he address today? Did Bronco Mendenhall address today the schedule and the kind of how they handled the bye week, and did they get what they wanted out of the bye week?
Oh yeah, no. He said the word he used was successful, and for the bye week and all that to this point. Because I mean, is a bye week successful if you if it isn't followed by a win and that philosophy and all that. But yeah, he said the focus was this last week was really on self-analysis, kind of getting prep going for Auburn, getting that early jump, recovery, because there are some injuries in play for UNM right now. And then what was the other thing you said? And then practice. Yeah.
So this is just because I think it's so awesome. This was the specific quote I wanted to get on, just the schedule. You went over the actual important stuff. I think the funniest part was basically what he said last week about what the schedule will be for the bye week. And I think as the UNM Lobo football account said, get your notepad and pencil ready for this. This is what Bronco Mendenhall said last week in terms of how they will handle the actual logistics of a schedule, what they will do on each day during the bye week. This is from last Monday.
I'll put a plan with a caveat subject to change, but as of right now, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday will be more conditioning, running, not practicing. Thursday night will appear like a Monday night, first exposure to the opponent. Friday will look like a Thursday. Saturday, Sunday, most likely off, with Monday looking like a Tuesday, Tuesday looking like a Wednesday, with 2 Thursdays before we go to Auburn. Subject to change. I'll put.
Yeah, I don't know if the Monday turning into Tuesday. I don't know if that shifted to a Wednesday or if it moved back to a Monday kind of schedule. But yeah, I'm not entirely sure how it played out on a day-to-day scheduling basis. But no, yeah,
The big question on the bye for anybody, for any media member or any fan, I guess, watching, is just kind of how did the injuries, did it help with injuries? Did anybody that was hurt get rested up enough to maybe play this week? What's the injury outlook right now? Did the bye come at a good time this early in the season for them?
So I think the bye is mixed, and I'll put this caveat up front. We didn't see, Mendenhall doesn't talk about injuries. If you ask him about an injury, he is going to usually decline comment,
Right.
or maybe, and if he doesn't know the timeline, he'll tell you that he just does not know the timeline. So the bulk of us knowing who is in and who is out comes from just the 30 minutes of practice we watch each week. We did not have practice week, so I don't know the exact guys that are currently injured at the moment. We'll find out more tomorrow when we watch practice. But you do look at the two deep right now. Tevin Shaw, a Houston transfer. He has been a guy that he's been playing left tackle since the first game after an injury to the former starting center, Juwan Singletary. Kind of forced UNM to shuffle the lines, keep the guards in check, but kind of move things around the tackles. He's not listed as starting center. Lejuan Owens, a Tulane transfer, a freshman. He is now the listed starter at left tackle. I asked Mendenhall about that. He said, yeah, an injury. And we were not aware of an injury, that happened to Shaw during the Arizona game. Kind of unclear if that happened during practice. He played, I believe, just about every snap. That wasn't just about every snap in their normal, base offense, where they weren't bringing in like Malik Elaine into center and all that. So kind of unclear on that. Mendenhall did say after the Arizona game that they did suffer some the word he used was significant injuries in the secondary. It's still unclear. I asked him if that situation might have gotten better. Is it progressing? And he said it's just progressing at this point. It's not that we had the bye week and we're all good to go now. So yeah, I think that is kind of what I'm most curious about as well. On the two deep as well, Mahala Santoreneos is not listed, kind of the normal, not listed as one of the backup linebackers at this point. Safety Hunter Wiggins, who just earned his number before the Arizona game, is listed as the backup buck linebacker, which is interesting. Curious to kind of see more of that in practice. So yeah, it does not seem that actually, I'll backtrack. Mendenhall did say that the depth isn't quite where he would like it to be at this point. They're a little thinner than they expected to be at this point in the season. A lot of that has been injuries. But right now, we just, outside of Singletary and all that, and Tevin Shaw, we don't know the extent of those injuries at this point. So
Are we off the topic there? Earlier, I said we got to name the show something. Somebody suggested the Monday morning Lobo quarterback. I will point out we're doing it at 2 p.m. So it's probably not going to be a Monday morning name. And we might not always do it on Mondays. And further, we probably won't brand it anything Lobo centric just because this will change throughout the year. We want to be able to do this for other sports once it comes basketball season, other things that come up. Right now, Lobo football is the primary thing that Sean and I sort of are working on. Obviously, James Yotis has it held down on the prep beat and is doing a great job with that. There's a lot of really good high school football storylines going on, by the way. abqjournal.com/sports. You should be catching up on all that kind of stuff there. Friday nights and Saturdays both. The prep football coverage is fantastic at the Journal, and you should take a look. Subscribe if you can. Quick plug, abqjournal.com, print, digital, whatever you can. As far as Lobo stuff goes, we do have a comment here I'll ask you about from a colleague. This is a Journal business desk colleague and a Lobo alum, a UNM former UNM student, worked at the Daily Lobo. And Matthew would like to know, do we know the uniform combination for the Lobos this week at Auburn on Saturday? And will Devin Dampier change his face mask? Has there been any talk of face masks? Have you ever talked with Bronco or anybody about face masks?
I have never once talked with Bronco about face masks. I have talked with our friend Matt Narvaez a little bit about that in particular because he's brought it up.
What's this about?
He thinks that Devin wears a running back's face mask, I believe,
Okay.
and not a quarterback's face mask. And he has issue with it limiting his peripherals.
Ooh,
Um,
okay.
I think I don't think that's really been an issue to this point. And I think whatever Devin's comfortable with, we're just going to let Devin roll with.
Hey, I'm gonna start paying attention to this face mask though.
Um,
That might be onto something here.
Uniform combo, just white jerseys and red pants, from what I'm aware of. I don't think they're going to be doing any special jerseys this year. That's kind
Okay.
of what I've been led to believe. But yeah, white jerseys if they are all
I was
resized.
gonna say, I mean, if they say they're gonna have white road jerseys, you can take it to the bank. You know it's gonna happen because what could possibly happen with the road jerseys. Are we sure that they're gonna be ready?
I believe they are all good to go and ready now. The entire shipment of resized white road jerseys is in. So yeah, should be a good uniform
All the
match.
players have earned their road jerseys, and I know none can be given. So they've all earned their jerseys so far, and we should have a fully clothed Lobo football team.
Yes,
Okay.
fully clothed, fully padded.
All right. You posted a video earlier today about Bronco. Do you wanna set this up a little bit? I'll pull it up here, and we'll have people listen to it. This is the one you set up, kind of about. Well, go ahead. You know which one it is. You've only posted the one since the presser so far.
Yeah, this is a question from Jeff Symbieta that I actually really liked. I thought it was a good question. About 2 games in, the results haven't been what you want because nobody wants to start 0-2, and nobody wants to lose. But it's everything else kind of going according to plan in terms of program building and schemes being implemented and all that. And I really like Bronco's response here. I thought it was really interesting. He kind of laid out a lot of things all at once, and we can play it right now.
Certainly been things that we're adjusting to as we went. The inconsistency in the big plays that we're giving up defensively, didn't expect that many and that frequent. And so I thought we were kind of past that. And it's manifest in 2 different ways in 2 different games from different personnel. So yeah, chasing that down as fast as possible. I think the resiliency, optimism, and work ethic of the team has surprised me in a positive way. They're hungry and eager and hopeful, desperate and diligent, and all those things, and resilient. And that part has been really fun. You never quite know where that's going to be after an off season in the summer and you start to go through fall camp. And so I really liked that part. The rest of it, in terms of depth and roster, that's playing out as we go. We're a little thinner than what I thought. Some injuries have occurred that have changed that also. So I thought we'd be a little deeper than we are at this stage. So that's probably off plan a hair. And the rest is, it feels like forging the football program. That's what it feels like.
If you couldn't hear there, that was also Sean Reider's keyboard getting abused during the answer. One of the hardest typers I know. I won't say the hardest because the hardest typer I know is James Yodis. He has literally had keyboards replaced at the Journal because when he comes back to the office on a Friday night after watching a game and then calling coaches around the state and doing his roundups, he is just pounding hard.
It is insane.
It is insane, and I will say Sean is not at that level, but man, Sean can use a keyboard. I can tell you. All right, Sean. Response to reaction to what Bronco just said there, and he seems every week. I don't know if this is just going to be him, and we'll learn that this is him, but he has seemed at every stage to be pretty optimistic and pleased with what he has seen from his team in terms of kind of benchmark moments, right? They're ready for week 1 as best as he thought, like, oh, yep, they're ready. And he wasn't disappointed even after the Montana State loss with how prepared they were. He's praised Devin Dampier and said, yep, he's as good as we thought. And there he's saying he's even kind of overall pretty happy on a positive side with how they've responded to a lot of things. So is Bronco just going to be gushing all the time about his team?
Well, I think my main takeaway there was honestly him talking about the big plays on defense. I thought it was interesting that look, I don't think any coaching staff in the country is going to walk into a game against Arizona and be like, yeah, we're going to give up 300 yards to Tetero McMillan. Like, it's just going to happen. Like, darn, like, that stinks. I don't think any coaching staff in the country is going to do that or is going to feel that way and all that, and they're going to prepare that way. But I think I had a little bit of surprise at his surprise in terms of the big plays, and this is not to talk down on personnel, if only for the fact that he had said all throughout spring and all throughout camp that defensively they're just trying to find further consistency, and inconsistency is what creates big plays, in the running, in the rushing, in the pass game, and all that. And for him to kind of reveal that, maybe reveal is too dramatic a term, but to kind of talk about having that feeling, it did make me kind of think in the moment, listening to him talk, like, where exactly did he expect this defense to be overall in terms of consistency. So I thought that was pretty interesting on that note, honestly. Because it has been a problem. I mean, UNM is currently losing games right now because of the fact that they can't stop big plays in the run game and the pass game. It has not been death by 1,000 cuts for the most part. It has been, huge plays from McMillan and against Arizona, and then you had that 93-yard Adam Jones rushing TD against Montana State that really kind of flipped the dynamic there on that. But yeah, I thought that him talking about that was interesting as well. And then the depth too, I kind of touched on that earlier. There has been injuries in place, but year one, you're probably never going to have the depth that you would ideally like. But it seemed like throughout spring and fall that he did like the depth. We asked him about certain positions and all that. Like linebackers in particular, that depth was in question after the spring, but they added plenty of guys there. And he said in fall camp that he liked the depth a lot. So just kind of curious, kind of interesting how this is all starting to play out with the injuries and all that. So yeah.
I think going into an SEC school, an SEC opponent game like this, you always worry about depth anyway. Early in the season, maybe you don't worry quite as much just because you would assume that maybe you haven't had the attrition of 10, 12 weeks of a season kind of wear your team down. But I obviously depth is still going to be a big concern on Saturday, I would think.
Yeah, for sure. And it is kind of a bad scheduling beat in some ways. It'd be one thing if they played Arizona and Auburn and then had this bye week and all that. But the fact that you have this bye week, a chance to rest up and all that, and then you got to go play an SEC school, that has questions of its own, but is still on paper the physical favorite there. And that can do some damage there.
Jimmy has another suggestion for us, and that will be, instead of the calling the show the Monday Morning Lobo Quarterback, he wants it to be the Taco Lover and the Fruit Hater Show, which will bring me to another tangent. You were in Las Cruces this weekend, and did you get some good pregame Mexican food, which is Press Box has often served Mexican food before football games. I am curious if they did that this week for you. Did you get some good food this weekend in Las Cruces?
Yeah, I always eat good in Cruces, man. It was enchiladas pregame meal. I'll always love that, just the kind of buffet style there. The tins just filled with stuff. It was good, man. It always is.
They don't usually even bother you with, at the end of the row of food, they don't even bother putting out one of those little aluminum tins that they have with all the food, the catering. They don't have melon and grapes and fruit and stuff. They don't even bother with it. If they did, would you have tried a grape after all the pressure you've been getting from the masses, really, about you having never eaten a grape in your life?
Yeah, I think I'm pretty good under pressure. So just have not even come close to cracking under that. If the opportunity was presented, probably wouldn't. You don't want to. You're settling in to cover a game. It's kind of a late night. Game. Kickoff was 8:15. You're going to be working past midnight. You don't want to take a chance that late in the day.
On a grape.
Yeah, you eat a grape, blueberry, melon.
You don't want to get a grape to upset your stomach.
Well, you don't know what's going to happen, man. I mean, what if I have like this horrible blueberry allergy that we just don't know about.
Or injury. I mean, a blueberry injury.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, what if indeed?
What if, man?
All right. If we're wrapping up what people should look for this week, stuff you've already talked about, stuff that maybe you haven't mentioned so far, what should people kind of be on the lookout for this week if the Lobos are to pull off either? I mean, an upset is one thing, but just to keep it close like they did against Arizona. Again, they lost by 22 points to Arizona, but I still think most people that understand the team and have followed the team understand that that was a pretty good outing in Tucson 2 weeks ago, or just a little over a week ago. What would it take, even in a loss, for Lobo fans to still kind of be a little bit optimistic about this Lobo team, even if they're 0-3 heading back home for their next home game against Fresno State in 2 weeks? Like, even with the loss, is there a way to keep Lobo fans happy at
Yeah,
0-3?
yeah, 100%. I think there's a 100% a way to keep momentum, and I think a lot of that is just putting points on the board. If you're going to be competitive with Auburn, I think you are going to have to be a little more all hands on deck overall in terms of personnel and all that. And a good game plan is going to go a long way for sure. But I think you're going to have to be all hands on deck in terms of just using, getting the most out of all the personnel you have, and connecting them those deep shots with Nick Trujillo and maybe getting Medford more involved. And then also leaning on guys that have been really good. Like Luke Weissong has obviously been terrific. I think Ryan Davis has also kind of been, I don't know if I want to say totally unsung, because his production hasn't really jumped off the page, but I think he's been quite good as well. Sean Miller, too, another wide receiver that you probably want to see more out of as well. You're going to want to, if you're going to beat Auburn, you're going to have to run the football straight up. So another good outing from the offensive line with apparently with an injury, forcing the shuffle at the left tackle spot. That's going to be interesting. You're going to want to see that as well. And I think, defensively, I think it's kind of an unfair test in some ways. I'm not saying that unfair probably isn't the right word either, but I'm not saying that Auburn is just that much more talented than UNM at this point, but they do have, they have 5-star recruit playmakers. Former 5 stars, guys that really good recruiting pedigrees, ton of talent. If they can limit big plays against Auburn and show that they're making progress, against an opponent where, on paper, they don't have much of a shot. And that's just the on paper kind of projection. Then, yeah, I think that is a really good way to, keep momentum going and kind of continue to stoke further optimism at this point in the season.
This isn't specifically a gambling show, but look, they are 2-0 against the number and been 2 touchdown underdogs at home against a really good FCS team. And it is an FCS team. I know there might be some people listening still just kind of question why we even talk about a good performance in a loss to an FCS program for an FBS Lobo program. But the reality is where they're coming from and kind of what the, I don't want to even say rebuild necessarily, just the project in general of getting Lobo football to where it really needs to be for the whole department to kind of take a next step. Like it's a monumental task to get Lobo football going, and Broncos taken on that task, and to get them there, they've taken 2 games. They've taken steps forward, I would say, impressive steps forward, even though they lost twice. So to cover the number, though, you need games where you're scoring 31 points and games where you're scoring 39 points. That is hard for another team to cover a 2-point touchdown spread like if Montana State was favored, or a 31-point spread or whatever ended up being with Arizona. It's hard to cover those numbers when your offense can still kind of put up points. I know Montana State had 2 scoop and scores touchdowns, so it wasn't necessarily all the offense in that one. But point being, as long as the Lobo offense can kind of keep going, I'm not saying it's an elite offense. Auburn will see better offenses this year. But if the Lobo offense can put up a few points, it's really going to be hard in my mind for Auburn to cover that number, except for one thing, and that's that they're kind of the injured dog right now, right? There is some sort of you want to take the bad taste of last week's loss against Cal, get it out of your mouth as quickly as you can, and you probably don't want to have what happened last year against New Mexico State, ironically enough, happen again. So there's not really any sneaking up that a Lobo team can do on this Auburn team this week. You've lost that because they just are coming off a bad loss, in their mind, a bad loss certainly. And then obviously the upset last year with New Mexico State. you're not going to be able to sneak up on this Auburn team at all. So the Lobos are going to have their hands full, but we'll see if they can still put up 30 points. It's going to be really hard for any team to cover a 4-touchdown spread on them.
Yeah, and if you, I mean, and if you know, and if you can string together stops defensively, or you can, I mean, you can clamp up in the red zone and figure out ways to force field goals on that end too.
Yeah.
Really, like, it is kind of it's such different points in benchmarks comparing the program from this year to last year and all that. But around this time last year, we were talking about a Lobo defense that routinely got gashed by big plays and really struggled in that sense. So that's kind of what I'm looking to see. Just cleaner defensive efforts, and more consistency, as Bronco would call that, both defending the run and defending the pass.
All right, Sean. We'll wrap it up. Jimmy's back in one more time with, if you were marooned on Gilligan's Island, would you eat fruit just to survive, or would you just become an expert fisherman?
So where was Gilligan's Island? Was it was it like the tropics? Like where was it? Like exactly?
Yes.
Am I? I don't know, like
well, it's 3 hours away from wherever they took off from. So because it was a 3-hour tour, so 3 hours away from the nearest wherever is what I'm going to take a guess and say. I don't really remember where it was, but it was an island. You're stranded on an island is the point. Are you going to eat fruit, or are you just going to learn how to eat fish every meal?
Yeah, I think I'd probably gamble and try to become an expert fisherman. I'm far from an expert fisherman right now. I don't know if I could end up being an expert fisherman, but I would definitely try at the very least. I do love fish, big seafood guy. Yeah, if it came down to survival, I mean, if it was like bananas out there, then like I'm good to go. But if it's grapes and blueberries, I might have to break a couple streaks there and do what I can to preserve myself. But that's I would definitely give being an expert fisherman a go.
You had to go first. All right, we'll have to ask the stranded island type questions in a future show. With you get one show, or you get one TV show or one movie you could watch. Obviously, La Bamba is my answer. If you had one movie that you could watch on a stranded island the rest of your life, what would it be?
If I had one movie I could watch,
one movie. Somehow you have a TV that works, and you could watch one movie the rest of your days.
I feel like I wouldn't want to do that though. Like it's like you're watching like the same movie every day. Like I mean, I feel like that would just drive you further and further into like a bad headspace. Like I don't know.
Not if it's La Bamba.
Movie, I don't know, man. I couldn't even tell you the last time I watched a movie. Raising Arizona. I really like that movie.
Raising Arizona.
Yeah, I really like that movie.
It's not a bad movie, but that one would drive you insane, probably.
All right, then I'll just expedite the process. That'll be great.
Just speed it up a little. All right. Other things going on in the sports world. Getting a week closer to Lobo basketball. I think you could hear some commitments coming up soon. They've had a lot of really high level recruiting visits recently. National Signing Day isn't until November. The season doesn't start till November 4th. Lobo volleyball had a 3-0 weekend at Houston. And I think too, let's see, Lobo soccer, women's soccer, Heather Dyke's 10th season. They have now, I think their unbeaten streak now is 4. They did have a tie last Thursday, or 5 maybe.
A draw, Jeff, a draw.
It was a draw. Don't call it. It was all for naught. They were knotted at 0 apiece. Mm-hmm. 2 clean sheets in that one. And so that's kind of what's going on around the Lobo sports world. And I think too that worth noting, because it could be big time. If you're just into football, you might not care. But New Mexico State, I wrote about this weekend, does have a proposal with the state legislature to ask for $137 million endowment, of which $5 to $6 million a year in interest, only the interest, could go to New Mexico State to help fund and help ensure kind of stability with women's athletics down there. Kind of as the looming House versus the NCAA case is still unsettled. We all don't know what's going to happen with that, but when roster limits and roster sizes all change, and maybe a football coach then says, well, I can have more than 85 scholarships. I just have to divvy them up a little different. But as you want more football money and to compete with football and basketball, as that kind of stuff changes, there are questions about what will happen with women's sports. New Mexico State is trying to get ahead of the curve a little bit on that, and ask the state lawmakers to sort of, put their money where their mouth is a little bit. A lot of them like championing the cause of, well, what about women's sports? What about women's sports? It's hard to simultaneously scrutinize both UNM and NMSU for financial troubles of the past, and then also expect them to fully fund women's sports in an era where only football and basketball, men's basketball, are making money. But if you don't put more money into those, you're not going to be able to compete anymore. And if you do put more money into those two sports, then it's hard to fund all these other sports. So New Mexico State's trying to ask lawmakers to step in and ensure the stability of the female sports and the women's sports. It'll be interesting because I do think if adopted by some state lawmakers, this could be something that a lot of programs around the country start turning to state lawmakers for maybe a little bit of assistance. That's a little bit of an aside, obviously, to Lobo football, but those are some of the things going on around the sports world right now. Obviously, the NFL season probably took over a lot of people's consciousness this weekend, and fantasy football teams. Anything else before when do you leave this week? Friday?
Friday, yeah. NFL, how you feeling tonight? Niners.
Oh, I mean, they may never lose again.
I need Debo and Kittle tonight to get me at least 20. So I'm looking for that.
I will say my prediction on the record. I think in our weekly picks that we do publish every Thursday in the journal, I took the Jets and the number. They're getting, I think, 4.5 was the number we had on Thursday. And I did pick the Jets, but I am a 49er fan, and I am optimistic that the 49ers can do well tonight. I think the Jets defense is really good, but I think there's sort of this maybe overblown a little bit estimation of the Jets team, assuming Aaron Rodgers is healthy. Well, a guy who's 40 who just blew out his Achilles a year ago, I don't know how much we should expect out of Aaron Rodgers, and you could see that with Kirk Cousins yesterday in a loss. The Atlanta Falcons lost at home to Pittsburgh because Kirk Cousins isn't quite ready to be back yet, and he had an Achilles injury last year. Once old quarterbacks coming off Achilles injuries, I don't know why we just assume they're going to be what they once were. So I think the 49ers and their defense getting some pressure on Aaron Rodgers can give me a comfortable win tonight for the 49ers, even though I picked the Jets to plus 4.5 in our weekly picks. So.
Anyways, I do one last comment from Jimmy H that we do need to give some deserved shine. This is definitely the best one of the day. Yes, the movie I would watch if I was stranded on a desert island. What's Eating Gilbert Grape?
Can't believe it.
You joke.
I can't believe you've never had a grape. All right, man.
What's Eating Gilbert Grape either, too. So
you've never seen it?
No. We've been over. I haven't seen a lot of movies.
All right. Thank you all for watching, tuning in. We will have a post-game show after the Auburn game, about 30 minutes or so afterwards. I'll recap some scoring, some highlights, maybe some Mountain West scores while Sean is getting some interviews. And Sean, what's up?
Auburn, by the way, it was kind of up in the air whether it was going to be an ESPN2 or an ESPNU game, and that is locked in as an ESPN2 game. So you'll be able to find them on your televisions on ESPN2 on Saturday.
Everybody, it's an easy find unless you're a DirecTV subscriber. So good luck with that, DirecTV subscribers. ESPN2, it is. That gives the Lobos, by the way, their first 3 games of the season are pretty well-established national networks, right? You had, FS1? Was it FS1, the Montana State game?
FS1, then ESPN Arizona, and then ESPN2 for Auburn, excuse me.
Yeah, so you want some national attention on some Lobo football games, and you're getting it. They haven't won yet, but they actually look good against Arizona. So we'll see if they get the right commercial during this game and don't run a New Mexico State institutional ad at halftime like they did at the Arizona game. But I digress. Sean, thanks for being on. Thank you guys for watching and listening, and tune in Saturday.
Geoff, thank you for having me, and appreciate everybody for tuning in today.